Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our virtual back to school night. My name is Holly Basillo, and I am your son or daughter's sociology teacher. So, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to me, and then we're going to focus on the class and what we study in here. We'll also talk about the grade breakdown, and then I will show you access to the homework page. So this is just a little bit about me. This is my 9th year here at Rutherford High School. This is a list of classes that I've taught while here. This year and the last couple years, I have been teaching the Honors U.S. History 1, which I have had many of your children before in this class, and then sociology. Let's talk about sociology, what it is, and what we study in here. So this is a course outline. So these are the major themes and topics that we cover in sociology this year. So sociology is really cool. It's an elective that I actually wrote. So I picked the topics that I thought would be most interesting to students and most relevant to what's going on in today's society. So we start with the roots of sociology. So like any science or social science, we have to talk about the founders of sociology. We have to talk about the theories behind them, research methods, how sociologists conduct their studies, how they develop hypothesis, and then how they prove or disprove that, and then disseminate information to, the rest of society. So we start with that. And then we get into culture. So we study not only our culture, but we compare it to other cultures around the world. We'll talk about subcultures that exist within the United States. We'll talk about countercultures that also exist in the United States. Social norms, how we learn those social norms, how we learn to abide by them, what happens to us if we break those social norms. All of those things will be included in this culture chapter. Then we get into socialization and life in groups. So in order to study socialization, we focus on the 4 main agents of socialization. So we'll talk about how the family, school, peers, and the media work to socialize everybody. Again, how we learn to follow those social norms, how we learn what is correct behavior, what is incorrect behavior, what's desirable, what's not desirable. And then we will talk about life in groups. We'll talk about peer pressure. Who is most likely to succumb to peer pressure? What happens when, what can happen if peer pressure is given into? We'll talk about, some of the most famous hazing cases that have happened in the United States. We talk about cults. We talk about resocialization. All of that will belong in this chapter. Then we get into my favorite chapter, which is deviance and crime. So we talk about what is the difference between deviance and crime. How does a society know what should be considered deviant and who gets to decide? We'll talk about the theories behind deviance and why people choose to deviate and commit crimes. With this chapter, we also do a big project where we analyze the life and crimes of the most famous serial killers that have existed in the United States. The next chapter is race and ethnicity. So we talk about race and ethnicity and how racial discrimination and things of that nature still exist today. So one of the things I like to highlight on the first day of school is sociology is different than a traditional history class, because in a traditional history class, yes, we are trying to understand, where we are today and how we got there, but it's usually focused on studying the past in order to understand that, whereas sociology is focusing on the present. So when we talk about issues like racial discrimination, we're not talking about, Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement of the 1960s. We're talking about racial discrimination that still exists today. Sometimes a little bit harder to identify and define in an integrated society. So again, super relevant, especially considering everything that is going on in today's world. That is the next chapter. Then we get into gender and sexuality. So we talk about gender roles, what those traditional gender roles look like, how we learn to abide by them, what happens if we don't feel like we fit into those, and how gender discrimination also exists. And then the last chapter is family life and relationships. So we'll talk about how families shape our ideas of love, of marriage. We'll talk about the importance of a family, the function of a family and how it's changed over time, what happens if there's dysfunction in a family, like abuse or neglect. And then that will close out our sociology course. So this is a half-year course, a semester course. So it will run all the way through January. So the grading policy is listed here. So there are no tests. It is just projects. There will at least be 2 projects a marking period, and they will always be small group projects. So right now the students are working on developing a hypothesis for a sociological phenomenon or question that they would like to study, something that they think is relevant and interesting. They develop a hypothesis, and then they are going to, like a sociologist, conduct research to try to test that hypothesis and then show us their findings. They will also be doing movie analysis. They will also, like I said, be completing a project on serial killers. So we do a lot of cool stuff with that. Then quizzes are 30% of the grade. We will quiz at the end of each chapter. Quizzes are open note. So I will post my PowerPoint notes to Google Classroom for the students to access during a quiz. So they will always have access to my information and all the information that we talked about in class, and they will be able to use it for any type of assessment. Next is homework. This being an elective, there really isn't a ton of homework. It'll only be given a couple times throughout the semester, and it's usually just after we quiz on a unit and we're about to start a new one. It's usually an article that I want the students to read that's going to jumpstart us into the next chapter. And then classwork and participation. So this is 25% of the grade, and most of the grades in the grade book will probably look like this. So anything we do on a day-to-day basis, any type of class discussion, any type of group activity, individual activity, whatever it is that they're working on in class that's not otherwise specified is going to be a classwork participation grade. And then, of course, this year there are no benchmark assessments. So I'm going to show you access to my teacher page, which is the homework page, and then I'll show you how to contact me. All right, so if you come to the Rutherford Schools website and click quick links, it's going to scroll you to the bottom where you're going to click homework sites. It'll list the schools, click high school, and then it's going to list all of the teachers by department. So if you find social studies and world language, click on my name, it's going to bring you to this website. So then over on this left-hand side, you'll find sociology and then section 1 and section 2. So your son or daughter has either been assigned to section 1 or section 2. So when you click here, it's going to bring up a calendar. And any quiz, any project due date, any homework assignment, if there's something due on that day, there will be a little tab here that says so. Okay, this being the first couple weeks of school, not a whole lot has been due yet, so there really isn't anything on the calendar, but you will start to see quiz announcements, you will start to see, due dates for assignments. Any super important information will be on here on this calendar. It will also be on the Google Classroom that all students were asked to join. And then lastly, extra help and contact information. So especially this year, being that we have students who are fully virtual and with the hybrid model, I want to make sure that I am making myself available and accessible to anybody that needs me for help, concerns, questions, whatever it is. So I am always in my classroom before school if they want to stop by. I also have specified office hours for a virtual meeting. So between 1:15 and 2:35 every day, I will be available for a Zoom meeting if they need assistance with something, or they can always email me. So these options are also available to you. If you ever have any questions, concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay? All right, I hope that you enjoyed our virtual back to school night and hope to see you soon. Take care.